missing price action. Missing price action occurs when the complexity of the chart is right between a fully developed pattern and a single monowave. So this 5-wave move would be right between a fully developed 5-wave move and being a monowave. So when the data unfolds in just the right way, you'll see the correction that you can see will only be one time unit, so that the correction that is a little bit simpler can't be seen because you can't be less than one time unit. So if this were 2 time units, then we should be able to see the missing one because it would be 1 that would alternate with the one that's 2. Just like wave 2 here clearly alternates with wave 4 quite dramatically, actually. But when you only have 1 time unit in a correction, it's possible that the other one that's alternating is less than 1 time unit, so you can't see it. So that allows us to have wave 5 still be a 5-wave move, but only look like a correction because it's missing some price action. So I suspect that wave 5 is the same structure as the entire pattern here, with waves 1 and 2 right around here, wave 3 a little longer, wave 4, and then wave 5 would be the extended wave. So we have a 5th wave extension for wave 5, which is itself the end of a larger 5th wave extension. And for those of you who've been doing wave theory for a long time, you're probably aware that in contracting triangles, it's very common for the E wave of a contracting triangle to also be a contracting triangle. It's very common for the E wave of an expanding triangle to be an expanding triangle. So for the same reason, it's very common for the 5th wave of a 5th wave extension to be a 5th wave extension. So that all makes sense. We have good alternation between 1 and 2. We have no overlap between 2 and 4. Sorry, we have good alternation between 2 and 4, no overlap between 2 and 4. The 3rd wave is a little bit longer than wave 1. The 5th wave is comfortably longer, making it the extended wave. The whole thing expands. There's no break of the 2-4 trend line. So we have a nearly perfectly developed 5th wave extension. So now when all that's done, that still doesn't mean your count is correct. Probably the most important part of neo wave that separates it from orthodox Elliott wave is the concept of confirmation. So you want to go to your book if you have a copy, and you're going to go to chapter 6. Chapter 6 is all about the confirmation process. And the reason this makes neo wave so different from Elliott wave is because the market's post-pattern behavior is grading the accuracy of your analysis. It is having the final word on whether you're doing your homework correctly. You don't decide. The market tells you if you're right or wrong based on its post-pattern behavior. So if you look in chapter 6, page 2, at the top of the page, you see a diagram of a 5-wave move. In this case, it's a 3rd wave extension, but it's still a 5-wave move, and the concepts still apply. So what you want to see as far as stage 1 confirmation, if you go back to page 6-1, you can see this is stage 1 confirmation, and there's 2 stages of confirmation. So stage 1 confirmation is you want the market to break the 2-4 trend line in less time than the 5th wave itself took to form. So if we measure the 5th wave, sorry, I messed up. Okay, so if you measure the 5th wave, you can see the amount of time that the 5th wave took to form was greater than the amount of time the market took to go from here to this line here. So based on the rules in chapter 6, page 2, we have stage 1 confirmation of a 5th wave extension. Okay, so that means chances are pretty good our count's correct. It's not complete confirmation because there's 2 stages, but it's a pretty strong indication, especially with nearly perfect pre-pattern or perfect pattern structure and relationships and alternation and channeling. That makes the pattern extremely likely to be correct for that reason alone. Confirmation is how you start to prove that the analysis was correct. Now with each pattern, if it's a 1st wave extension, a 3rd wave extension, or 5th wave extension, you can see in chapter 6, page 2, there's a different way for stage 2 to confirm, depending on which wave is the longest. If you go to the very bottom of the page, it says, the correction to follow a fifth wave extension pattern must retrace at least 61% of the fifth wave, but must not retrace all the fifth wave if the trend is to remain in effect. If the fifth wave does not get completely retraced, it indicates the extension terminated a larger trend. Here are the different ways that can happen. So the fifth wave pattern was part of the larger impulse, and that part doesn't matter right now. So the retracement of wave 5 itself, it's saying right at the bottom of page 6-2, says must retrace at least 61% of wave 5, but must not retrace all of wave 5. So we clearly didn't retrace all of wave 5. So that means that rule was met, and if you do the measurement, this is just at 61% of wave 5. So it's almost precisely the rules mentioned in the book. We have a situation, and of course this book was written more than 25 years ago. We have a situation where the structure is following all the rules listed in the book. The design of the pattern is just like those listed in the book. Stage 1 confirmation was achieved just like mentioned in the book, and stage 2 confirmation was achieved exactly as mentioned in the book. These kind of specific rules are not part of Orthodox LA Wave. You won't find it in any other book on LA Wave, but these are crucial things to remove the subjectivity of wave analysis so that you can be confident in what you're seeing. So now we have a situation where we can be nearly certain we had a 5-wave move, that it's over with, and then we started a corrective phase. So if this is the first drop of a new correction, it has to be way back. There's no other possibility because the larger trend is up. And I know that because we've made new highs since then. Now, how do we move on from this? The reason I'm going through this long-term analysis is because it's very important that you always begin your analysis from the largest time frame and you work your way down. Most people make the huge mistake of beginning their analysis from daily charts and working their way up. If you do that, I guarantee your analysis will constantly be wrong. You'll constantly assume you know what's happening, and it turns out you're wrong. You're constantly going to be revamping counts. You're going to take trades that you think are legitimate that have no proper justification if you were to do the analysis from a top-down perspective. This process is absolutely critical, and if you don't do it, your counts are going to be wrong. So always make sure you begin from the largest time frame, and only until you're sure and you're comfortable that that time frame meets all the rules and you know exactly where you are, only then should you then take that information and force it down to the next lower time frame. You don't go to your monthly chart and start the analysis over. You take this count and you force it onto monthly charts because you know this count's right. The monthly counts have to agree with this in order for the entire picture to make any sense. Otherwise, you're going to have different scenarios on different time frames and nothing's going to be cohesive. So when we finish this, and I'm sure the class is probably going to go a little over time today, but when we finish this, we're going to take this information and force it down to the monthly, and then we're going to begin the same process again, but only from this turning point. As you move to lower time frames, you don't want to reassess all prior structure. The prior structure has been confirmed. We already know it exists. We know where it is. We know what it is. We don't want to reassess this on a monthly chart because the monthly chart is going to be very complicated and detailed, which risks, whenever you're dealing with detailed charts where there's lots of monowaves, it allows for personal intuition, personal judgment, personal bias to come to the picture. When you're dealing with patterns that are of this kind of complexity, it eliminates the personal subjectivity of wave analysis. So we don't want to reassess this on a monthly chart. We're going to take that at full value. It's going to be forced onto the monthly chart. And the only thing we're going to worry about on the monthly chart is from this high going forward. And then once that's been done, we're going to take a weekly chart and begin from this low going forward. And then when that's done, we begin from a daily chart and begin at one of these lows going forward. So as you move to lower time frames, you only want to begin with the very last wave that is incomplete. So the last wave that's incomplete on a 2.5-year chart would be this fourth wave. So we're only going to look at wave 4 when we get to our monthly chart. Okay, so back to the 2.5-year chart. So we know if this is the end of a fifth wave extension, which we now have virtual certainty due to incredibly good pattern development, good structure, good channeling, good alternation, good relationships, and proper post-pattern behavior, we can be virtually certain that this count is right. So we know the first move of any correction is going to be wave A. So we have this marked as wave A. Obviously, the next move has to be wave B. So this high has been marked wave B. Now this gets into getting into a lot more detail again. Most people who would be looking at this chart would, in most orthodox LA wave people, if they even counted this as I counted it, which they probably wouldn't, but if they called this the third wave and this is the beginning of a correction, what they would then immediately do is they would assume this is a flat and that we're starting the fifth wave now. Now I need to explain to you why that is also impossible. So let me put this up here. Okay, so when you're beginning a pattern of a larger degree or the same degree as the bigger pattern that just ended, we have the market defining what qualifies as a primary degree. And we can call this, intermediate, we call it anything. I'm just going to call it primary degree. So if this is a primary degree, the minute you give it a name, the minute you give it a label, you instantly define forward and backward in time what constitutes a primary degree within about 1/3 of the price, time, and complexity of any other wave of the same degree. So this goes back to chapter 4, where it discusses the rule of similarity and balance. So the minute you call this wave 3, we instantly know that wave 4 is going to take at least as much time as wave 3. And for those of you who have been with me for a really long time, and if you were getting my forecasting service back in 2000 and maybe saw me on television when I used to do national TV, I was indicating right at the high of the internet boom that we were getting ready for the biggest and most protracted bear market that we had experienced in our lifetime, and the biggest one since 1929. And that's because I knew wave 3 was ending, and I knew that wave 4 had to take at least about 20 years. In this case, it was 18 or 19 years. I just rounded it up to 20. So I knew that when this high occurred, that wave 4 would have to take at least 20 years, give or take. And it could take as much as 30 years. And I actually have been stating that many times over the last 10 or 15 years. And so that's reason number one why wave 4 can't be here. But a lot of people say, well, we made major new highs, it advanced quite a bit, it looks impulsive. So let's discuss that. When you're dealing with impulsive patterns, you absolutely have to have time variation between the up and down movements. You can't have everything the same in time in both directions. That's not the way impulsive patterns develop, because then you're eliminating the possibility of alternation. So let me go ahead and measure this, what some people might call wave 1 of a 5-wave move. So first problem, you can see that wave 2 takes less time than